You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 173.2. Hanson Crafton reacts to the Philadelphia Eagles' 40-22 win over the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
Hanson Crafton is our weekly combat sports report analyst, but he also does the NFL. When he worked for me when I was the sports editor at the News and Tribune in Jeffersonville and New Albany. Covered a couple of NFL games for us, and he and I like to talk about the NFL all the time. So I asked him to come on and talk about what happened in Super Bowl LIX, as I like to call it. All right. Before we get to Hanson, I just want to do my 15-second recap. And basically, it was 24 to nothing at halftime and could have been worse. It was that much an Eagles dominance. And the final score was 44 to 30. And that didn't nearly show the amount of dominance from the Eagles. Hanson, your reaction to the Eagles win over the Chiefs?
Surprising. Um, Biggest thing that I'll take away from is even in today's NFL game where it's a little bit geared towards the offense, defense still wins championships. That was a outstanding performance from the Philadelphia defensive line. They didn't have to blitz at all. They were able to get pressure all night with just four guys. Um, I think they did a great job. Big Fangio, obviously. Good to see him there. He was our defensive coordinator in 2018 when we had the best defense we've had
And when
since.
you say we, you're talking about the Bears.
Yes, he was there 18 for us, and that was a year we had a really good defense. So glad to see him get a Super Bowl. I think he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, especially when he's got the guys to play with. And tonight he showed. He had the horses on defense, and man, they was able to get after the Chiefs, and they had Mahomes on his back foot the whole night.
They really did. And Hanson, you can talk about all the things uh, that had made the advantage for the Chiefs coming in. You know, they had Mahomes, who's championship pedigree, and Andy Reid. You figured they had the coaching advantage. They've been there time and time again. They probably had that advantage. They had the advantage of the history on their side. But what it just came down to was the Philadelphia Eagles were the biggest, baddest bullies on the block.
Yeah, they were just a better team.
Yeah.
They uh they were better in the trenches where it
In the
really
trenches,
matters.
both sides.
You know, yep, and that's where the games won. They dominated both lines of scrimmage, and then the back ends. Jalen Hurts made plays when he needed to, and then their secondary made plays when they needed to. So it was a well-rounded team performance. And yeah, they just dominated from the start of the game to the finish.
By the way, I think I said 44 to 30. The final score is 40 to 22. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, yeah, the Chiefs committed to taking away Barkley. That was obvious from the beginning, and they put a few more guys up at the line of scrimmage. Even my wife, who's not the savviest football expert, said, "Man, they've got nowhere to run against the way the Chiefs formation is." And the Eagles took advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, going into it though, I mean, if you ask me how am I going to beat the Eagles, that's what I'm going to do.
Exactly.
I'm going to stack the box and I'm going to make Hurts beat me. And tonight he was just able to beat him. So I mean, the Chiefs kind of had the right game plan. They just
But
the Eagles just executed.
the Eagles knew exactly what the Chiefs were thinking too. Is exactly what you and I just said. Is that they're going to take away Barkley, and
Yep.
they were going to, the first touchdown was set up by a pass to, I can't even remember who it was, um, down to the 1 yard line, and again the Chiefs, it was third and
It was
three. The Chiefs had
Johan
just,
Dotson.
yeah, that's right, and the Chiefs had just taken away the run. They had given them no chance, and they got the one on one on the outside, and and that's really where things started to go the Eagles' way.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that stood out to me is Hurts kind of knew what his blitz beater was, and it was his legs tonight. You know, there were a couple of times where I noticed they were in a play, and it looked like he picked up blitz coming, and he changed it. You know, he audibled to a pass play, but it was really just him running. You know, like as soon as he snapped, he really wasn't looking to throw the ball. He just ran. So it seemed like he kind of knew that he had a blitz beater with his legs. And whenever he was able to pick up the blitz, it seemed like he would call to a play where he was going to run. And they had a couple big third downs where he was able to scramble and get. I know at one it was like third 11 and he got 9 and then they went for it on fourth and got it. But then there's another, it was like third and 5, third and 6, and he ended up getting it. He had a few big runs when they would blitz. And I feel like it was, he picked that up and was able to realize that he could beat the blitz with his legs.
It was clear to me, Hanson, about, I don't know, week 11 or 12, that DeJean and Mitchell were special in the defensive backfield and that the Eagles were the best team in the NFC. But I really thought that it was kind of a situation like, no offense to you, but 2006 when the Colts and Bears played in the Super Bowl, and literally every single team in the AFC would have been favored against the Bears.
Yeah.
Every single playoff team, I mean, in the AFC would have been favored against the Bears. It wasn't quite like that this year, but I really felt like the four best teams in the NFL were in the AFC, and whoever won the AFC was going to win the Super Bowl. So, um, but it was pretty obvious toward the end of the season that the Eagles were as good as the AFC the top level teams in the AFC.
Yeah, it's just because their defense, you know, they've had a top defense all year, and their defense has performed all year. And then
And
just with
then
the way they've been able to run the ball,
it's not
you
just
would
that,
think, you
Hanson, but
know,
if they have third and anything three or less, it's almost automatic when you have Hertz and you have Barkley and you have the what I think is a very unfair rule that you can assist the runner. And they've perfected it, and they just bully the other team, and it's almost automatic.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
such a
the
huge
rugby play,
advantage.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's. What
Yeah,
do you think? That's something that they should look into in the rules. I just don't think you should be able to assist your teammate.
yeah, I don't think they should. I mean, it is what it is, but yeah, I think it's a rugby play, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not really a big fan of it either.
So that's my next question, Hanson. Any chance that the Eagles repeat? Because I think this thing's going to fall apart completely by next year. They've got so many players on their team who cause trouble, who are me first players. That can work for 1 year. That's really going to not. That's really not going to play very well when you're the defending champions and getting everybody's best shot next year. You can't have guys pouting when they're not getting the ball, and you know, but if Jalen Carter's as good as he appears to be, which is he appears to be a Hall of Famer, maybe they can be this good. What do you think?
It's going to depend on the offseason. I know they're in good shape, contract wise. They've got a lot of guys under contract for cheap. They've drafted really well the last 3 years. So they've got a lot of affordable young guys right now. They're not really paying anybody outside of the quarterback and a couple wide receivers.
Do you keep AJ
Um,
Brown around the way he acted this year?
I think they will, but I think they'll have a shorter leash, especially now that they know they can win the Super Bowl. Now that they know that they got a quarterback who's been to 2 Super Bowls and performed really well in both Super Bowls he's been in. So I think that's, you know, when your quarterback performs well, you can show that receivers are expendable. So I think his leash will be shorter, but I think they'll probably be able to bring back majority of the guys. I know they got a couple free agents coming up. I know they got the Sweat kid, that's the defensive end, and then they got Becton that's on the offensive line. Both of those guys are free agents. So it'll be interesting to see that. But like I said, they've drafted really well. I know I saw something the other day that the last 3 drafts, both of their first and second round picks are like they're all six of them are great players on their team. So they've drafted really well. Seems like they've spent their money correctly. So they've got. I feel like they've created themselves a little window to where they can, if they could keep everything in line, they'll have the talent to where they should be able to
Well,
make a
that's for
run at it
sure.
next year.
That's for sure. Now, I don't think there's any question about that. My question is, with all that happened this year, a lot of times that stuff can be okay for a year. The example I use is the '85 Bears. The offenses and defenses hated each other. That stuff might work for a year. That's not going to work for a long term. And they have some guys on that team that are kind of me first guys. Hey, look at me. I'm center of attention. And that doesn't usually work for very long.
Yeah, no, especially in football, it's the
Yeah,
ultimate team game.
it really is. There are exceptions, and there have been exceptions through the years, but most of the time, that doesn't end up well. We'll see. But the Chiefs, I would put them fourth next year, third or fourth next year on the AFC list. What do you think? We're going to see them back next year at the top?
Yeah, oh yeah, the Chiefs will always be around. They've got the quarterback. That's the main thing in football. Um,
Yeah, but so do the Chiefs, and so do the Bills, and so do the Ravens, and so do the Chargers, and they all have a quarterback.
yeah, but they're all their quarterbacks can't beat Chiefs quarterback. So I think it's still as long as they have him, they've got Andy Reid, they'll be there. I do feel like they're a team that is kind of headed the other direction. They're a little bit older. I know they'll have some contract stuff coming up. They've got some guys that I think they're going to lose in the off season. I know they've got an offensive guard that we are going to be after in the off season. So
Again, when you say we, you're talking about the Bears. Most people think on this podcast that you'd be talking about the Colts, so be careful with that.
oh no, yeah, no, I'm talking about the Bears. Yeah, we're going to be. I think we'll invest heavily in the trenches this off season. Um,
Should have before.
yeah, yeah, but
When
they
you
got they
draft a
got a little
young
cute.
quarterback, you have to put linemen around him. It's a must. And they just
Yeah,
didn't
they
do a
they
good
got a
enough
little
job of
cute.
that.
No, they didn't. They went wide receiver, and really got all the pieces like that. But I don't know. I feel like this year they're kind of that's what they're going to do. I think they know and they've learned from their mistake. Got a new coach in who he's from a team who built their team up from the trenches out. So, um, and it's off season where that's available. There's a lot of pieces that they can add that can help in areas where they need it.
If you were going to name an MVP and include the playoffs, is it Jalen Carter? NFL MVP if you include the playoffs.
Include the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's either Saquon or I still feel like Josh Allen was probably the most important
Man.
person to his team.
But Jalen Carter was so good in the playoffs. Every single round, he was the dominant player. He might not have had the dominant stats every night, but he was drawing the attentions of the defense. So athletic, so strong, so smart. Man, I really felt like if you include the playoffs, and you kind of got to give it to the team that wins the Super Bowl. You're right. It's either Saquon or Jalen Carter. But man, how good was he this year in the playoffs?
Well, I think Saquon set a record, didn't he,
He
for
did.
most yards combined, the regular season and postseason?
He did have the advantage of an extra playoff game and an extra regular season game. But yes, he did.
Yeah, I know he had a tough game tonight though, but
Yeah, if he doesn't draw all that attention, it's a different game. So in his way, he
yeah,
was an MVP tonight.
yeah, oh yeah.
I'll go ahead and say, just off the top of my head, and it's not official, I'll go ahead and say the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl. And man, who's the NFC? Is it's tough.
Yeah, probably the Eagles. I mean,
I mean, they're obviously the favorites right now, but man, I don't think that they're going to survive. The Lions are probably going to return everybody, so I would probably put the Lions, but the Lions never win it. So, but I would say Bills over Lions would be my
Yeah, I think the
prediction.
Lions will be up there again too.
Yeah, and what if the Vikings get a quarterback? They could,
Aaron
yeah,
Rodgers.
yeah, that would be interesting if he went to the Vikings with the exact same path that Brett Favre went,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
it would be.
That'd be so funny. I would look forward to that. All right, Hanson. I look forward to talking about the weekends in fighting, and we will do that tomorrow and talk about all the good stuff that happened in MMA and boxing over the weekend. Thanks so much to Hanson for joining me to talk about the Super Bowl. And thank you for listening. Please go like, subscribe, or follow us so you don't miss a single segment. We can be heard on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or at YouTube. Just search Central Indiana Sports Report, and we are very easy to find. Even if you are inept at technology, it's so easy to do that I don't feel like I need to explain it to you. Oh, and please tell a friend about the Central Indiana Sports Report. Thank you. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media. I love Susie.